This title is narrated with virtual voice. Computer-generated narration for audiobooks. When Rivers Burn, by Heidi Moore. Map of Europe circa 1939. Map from Pinterest.com. Königsberg circa 1939. Map from Pinterest.com. Dedication. To my son, Sean. Your lifelong curiosity about our ancestors, where they came from and how they lived, inspired me to write this book. I wanted to give you a glimpse into our family's history in East Prussia, and hope that you would experience a connection to your forefathers from that part of the world. In loving memory of my Aunt Hilda, whose memoir made it possible for me to write this book. Releasing the manuscript has caused me to realize how amazing and harsh her life was. I also would like to remember my grandparents, Oma and Opa, along with Aunt Ruth, my cousins, as well as my mother, Crystal. This is also for my cousin Ermi, my husband, my family in the United States and abroad. I would never wish to diminish the atrocities the Jewish population suffered at the hands of the Nazis. Nor would I deny the horrific tales of Russian civilians, who were murdered by German soldiers in the early years of the war. My heart goes out to every person who endured enormous trauma and suffering during the Second World War, the ones who survived, and those who perished. Introduction. At the end of January 1945, Königsberg was completely destroyed by the indiscriminate, large-scale bombings of the civilian population. There is little information about the fate of the remaining 200,000 German citizens in Königsberg, following the Soviet occupation. After pushing their way into East Prussia, Red Army soldiers took revenge for Hitler's ruthless destruction of Mother Russia and the millions of victims left behind. The Russians began their merciless assault on German women and children, many of whom committed suicide or met their demise by starvation, disease, or being brutally murdered. My Aunt Hilda and my mother were trapped in Königsberg and forced to endure rape, starvation, and unimaginable personal losses. This book is a first-hand account of my family's journey from living a charmed life in a prosperous city of approximately 370,000 in 1939, to barely surviving amidst ghostly ruins and burning rubble. In 2003, I went to Königsberg with two of my surviving relatives. The Russians had since renamed the city Kaliningrad. By walking the streets and following my aunt's descriptions of certain events, I was able to put together pieces of unanswered family questions that had mystified me since my early childhood. Preface. I grew up in a small town in southern Germany. From an early age I was intrigued about the faraway place my ancestors came from. I would listen to my family's stories about their homeland, East Prussia. With longing in their voices, they would remember their city, Königsberg, the tall dark forests, and the wonderful times they spent at the Baltic Sea, before the Second World War started. They would also tell heartbreaking stories of inconceivable hunger and appalling living conditions during and after the war. Teary-eyed they would recall how and why they had to leave their beloved homeland behind. Their sadness penetrated my soul. I moved to the United States in 1974, but the mystery of my origins were never far from my mind. In the 1990s, I took a trip to Germany to visit my Aunt Ruth, the youngest sister of Aunt Hilda and my mother. While talking to her about our family tree, she surprised me with her sister Hilda's memoir. It was a most incredible moment when I realized that I now had a written document of my family's life in East Prussia, their journey through the war, and the years afterwards, when they were compelled to work in Russian labor camps. Reading my Aunt Hilda's memoir made me realize that books and movies were most often about soldiers and the military. Few stories were written about individuals, especially women and children, who were forced to endure starvation, injuries, and long-lasting trauma during World War II. I felt obligated to give those women and children a voice. Acknowledgement.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.